you ever looked around and realized your circle is smaller than it used to be? Maybe some friends moved away, maybe others are too busy, or maybe they just faded out of your life without a reason. And for a while, that can feel like something's missing, like you've lost part of yourself. But here's what I want to say to you today: smaller circles aren't a problem. In fact, they can be a blessing. When you reach a certain age, 70, 75, or beyond, the world starts to quiet down. The rush, the noise, the constant need to please or prove something to others, it starts to fall away. And what's left is something a lot more honest: you. Your time. Your peace. Your freedom. And that's what today's conversation is really about. We're going to talk about why you don't need friends after 70, at least, not in the way you used to. Because the truth is, this chapter of life isn't about keeping up with everyone. It's about letting go of what doesn't serve you, and embracing the kind of happiness that doesn't depend on anyone else's presence, approval, or schedule. Now don't get me wrong, if you have a friend or two who truly lifts you up, who makes you laugh, who supports you without judgment, that's a gift. But many of us, especially as we get older, start to see certain friendships for what they really are: convenient, surface level, or sometimes even draining. And that brings us to the first reason you don't need a crowd anymore: you've outgrown most of it. When you were younger, friendships often revolved around shared activities: work, kids, school events, church groups, hobbies. But as life changes, those shared activities fade. And when they do, you start to see what's left. Sometimes it's meaningful, but sometimes it's just empty space. There's nothing wrong with outgrowing people. It doesn't mean you're better or they're worse. It just means you've changed, and hopefully, grown into someone who values quality over quantity. Someone who doesn't need 5 coffee dates a week or constant texting to feel connected. Someone who's learned how to enjoy their own company because they finally trust themselves enough to sit in silence and feel at peace. And that's the second reason life after 70 can feel freer without the pressure of constant friendships. You start to enjoy solitude, not fear it. Think about how rare that is in today's world. Most people are constantly distracted, constantly scrolling, constantly afraid of being alone with their own thoughts. But you've lived. You've seen things, felt things, learned the hard way that being alone doesn't mean being lonely. In fact, the more time you spend in your own space, doing what you want, how you want, the more you begin to realize how much energy it used to take to maintain relationships that weren't even fulfilling. All the small talk, the social obligations, the tiptoeing around things just to keep the peace. After 70, you've earned the right to stop pretending. To stop showing up out of guilt. To stop investing time in people who don't invest in you. I once spoke to a woman named Marlene, 76 years old, who told me something I'll never forget. She said, "I used to think I needed to fill my calendar to feel useful. But now, I protect my time like gold. If someone doesn't bring me peace or joy, they don't get my Saturday anymore." That, right there, is wisdom. And here's where it gets even better. When you clear space from the wrong connections, you make room for peace. And peace is powerful. Peace is waking up in the morning and not worrying about who you need to call back. Peace is knowing you don't have to explain yourself anymore. Peace is drinking your coffee slowly, in silence, and actually enjoying it, because your life isn't revolving around someone else's needs anymore. Now, for a long time, society told us that being popular or well-connected was the key to happiness. But if you've made it past 70, you already know the truth. Freedom is more valuable than popularity. Freedom to say no. Freedom to be unavailable. Freedom to take a nap in the middle of the day without anyone asking where you are. Freedom to spend your energy on the people and the things that actually matter to you. And the surprising thing is, once you start living this way, once you stop chasing connection for connection's sake, you may find that the right people, the ones who really see you, start to show up. Not because you need them, but because you finally made room for something real. There's a kind of joy that comes with not depending on anyone to fill your day. You start to look around your home, your garden, your morning routine, and you realize, this is enough. I am enough. It's not about isolating yourself. It's about reclaiming your energy. About remembering that happiness isn't something that comes from the outside. It's something you build from within. With your choices. With your boundaries. With your courage to say, I don't need a full table to feel full. I just need peace. There's something very freeing about getting older and finally realizing you don't need to be available to everyone anymore. You don't need to answer every message. You don't need to be part of every conversation. And you certainly don't need to keep relationships going out of habit, especially when they've stopped bringing you joy. One of the greatest gifts after 70 is the ability to finally see things clearly, including people. And when you do, you start to recognize that not every relationship was healthy. Some were built on convenience. Some on obligation. And some, if you're honest with yourself, were never truly real. And that's the third reason you don't need friends the way you used to. You no longer have the energy to entertain what drains you. Your energy now is more precious than ever. You wake up knowing exactly how much of yourself you can give, and who's actually worth giving it to. Think about how many times in the past you said yes when you wanted to say no. How many times you stayed in touch with someone just because of history, even though every interaction left you feeling unheard, exhausted, or just invisible. That's not friendship. That's endurance. And you've already endured enough in your life. This is the time for ease, not effort. There's a real kind of power in giving yourself permission to walk away from relationships that don't respect you. Not with bitterness, but with grace. Quietly. Confidently. The same way you'd close a book you finished reading. No drama. No explanation. Just the calm understanding that some chapters aren't meant to last forever. And what you'll notice, and this is important, is that when those draining connections fade, your days feel lighter. Not empty, lighter. More spacious. More peaceful. You'll notice you have more time for the things you want to do. More energy for the simple joys you might have overlooked when you were too busy keeping up with everyone else's expectations. A man I met named George, who just turned 81, told me that cutting off 2 longtime acquaintances was the best thing he ever did. He said, they always talked over me, ignored my boundaries, and only called when they needed something. I kept them around because we'd been friends for 40 years. But once I let go, I finally had space to be me. And it felt like breathing fresh air. That's not just his story, that's a truth so many people discover late in life. That peace of mind is better than constant company. That self-respect is worth more than staying connected just for appearances. And here's the 4th reason you don't need a lot of friends after 70, you become your own best companion. That may sound cliche, but think about it. Who else has walked through everything you've been through? Who else knows how your mind works, how your body feels, what your soul has survived? You've spent a lifetime showing up for others. Now's the time to show up for you. Go to lunch alone and enjoy it. Take a walk and let your thoughts wander. Read a book that makes you laugh out loud and don't feel strange doing it with no one around. Buy the nice soap. Rearrange the furniture. Listen to music that takes you back, or music that pulls you forward. When you become your own best companion, you don't fear alone time, you look forward to it. You learn to listen to your needs, honor your moods, and treat yourself with the care you once reserved only for others. And here's the magic part, when you do that, when you become whole and happy in your own company, you no longer need anyone else. And it's in that space, that calm, grounded space, where the right people actually start to show up. People who don't expect you to entertain them. People who respect your time and your peace. People who see your solitude not as a problem, but as a sign of wisdom. Because when you're over 70, needing less is a form of freedom. And that's what this is really all about, freedom. The freedom to be with people by choice, not out of loneliness. The freedom to rest when you want, to speak only when you feel like it, to spend your energy like it's a limited, precious currency, because it is. And the best part? You stop apologizing for it. You stop apologizing for saying no. You stop apologizing for not picking up the phone. You stop apologizing for prioritizing your peace over someone else's expectations. After all, you've spent decades making sure everyone else was okay. Your children, your partner, your coworkers, your friends. You've said yes 1,000 times when you really wanted to say no. But not anymore. Now, you get to ask yourself, what do I need today? What brings me joy? What makes me feel free? And if the answer doesn't include a long list of friends or packed social plans, that's okay. In fact, that might just be the clearest sign of growth. You've outgrown the need for noise. You've outgrown the need for approval. You've outgrown the belief that your worth depends on how many people like or include you. Now, you finally get to include yourself. There's something so peaceful about realizing that you don't need to chase anymore. You don't need to chase friendships. You don't need to chase approval. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. Because after 70, you finally understand, your life is not about being everything to everyone. It's about being true to yourself. You've spent decades building, giving, showing up. You've poured yourself into raising families, building careers, supporting friends. You've been a listener, a helper, a rock. And for that, you should be proud. Truly proud. But now is your time to breathe. To rest. To live your life exactly how you want to live it. No explanation, no guilt, no apologies. And that leads us to one last reason, maybe the most important of all, why you no longer need to rely on friendships the way you once did. You've finally come home to yourself. You know your own rhythm. You trust your gut. You feel okay doing things alone, because alone doesn't mean lacking. Alone now means peaceful, spacious, safe. I want you to think about something for a second. When was the last time you sat in silence and felt completely okay? No background noise. No need to scroll. No urge to call anyone. Just you. Just the sound of your own breath, the feel of your feet on the floor, the quiet joy of being right here, right now. That stillness you feel? That's your soul settling in. That's the real you stepping forward, not the version shaped by society or the expectations of others, but the real, raw, beautiful version that's been there all along, just waiting to be seen and honored. And here's something a lot of people don't talk about. The more you lean into this quiet power, the more you start to enjoy life as it is, not as it used to be. You stop mourning the old social circles. You stop needing everyone to check in on you. You stop looking backward and start standing firmly in the present, right where you are. I once heard someone say, solitude isn't the absence of love, it's the presence of self. And I believe that's especially true after 70. When you stop trying to keep up, when you stop measuring yourself against how busy or social you are, you begin to realize that the most fulfilling moments often come when you're just being. Maybe it's enjoying your tea on the porch as the sun comes up, or folding laundry while humming a favorite tune, or tending to your plants, walking slowly through your neighborhood, or reading a book that makes you feel something. These moments might not make for exciting stories, but they build a life that feels deeply yours. And here's what's truly beautiful, when you no longer need people to fill your time, the ones who do show up, they're there because they want to be. Not out of duty. Not because you chased them. But because you've created space for real, honest connection, free of pressure, free of performance. That's when friendship becomes something else entirely. Not a requirement. Not an escape. But a gift. One that complements your joy, not creates it. So if you're watching this and thinking, but I miss having friends, I want you to ask yourself, do you miss the people, or do you miss the version of yourself that felt needed? Because that version of you still exists. But now, your purpose doesn't have to revolve around being everything to everyone. Now, your purpose can be quiet, intentional, joyful in the simplest ways. It's okay to be selective. It's okay to say no. It's okay to spend most of your time alone and feel absolutely content. You've earned that. This season of life isn't about adding more, it's about letting go of what no longer fits. And sometimes, that includes friendships. That includes old roles. That includes outdated expectations. What remains is what was always meant to stay: your peace, your voice, your freedom. So if today you decide to stop apologizing for needing space, if you decide to stop chasing connections that no longer feel right, if you decide to choose yourself, even if that means doing things solo, then I want you to know that's not giving up. That's growing up. That's wisdom. That's strength. And most of all, that's freedom. Before we go, I'd love for you to share something in the comments. What's one thing you've come to love about your alone time? Whether it's a habit, a routine, a moment of joy, your answer could inspire someone else to see solitude in a new way. If this video gave you a sense of peace or clarity, give it a thumbs up, and subscribe if you want more honest, comforting, and empowering videos made just for people like you. You deserve that. And remember this, above all else, you are still whole, still worthy, still strong, with or without a crowd around you. Here's to your peace. Here's to your joy. Here's to living fully and freely at any age.